History was made. The rain might fall in Canada. What of Alpine? And by the law of averages, Red Bull should be beaten this weekend. Welcome to the show. Let's go racing.
They exist in a world beyond ours. This is Formula One.
Hey, welcome to the show. We're, of course, live from the Menlyn Shopping Centre in our wonderful Suzuki bespoke pop-up store. And I've got to tell you, Gary, there's a buzz here. I think it's maybe because of the public holiday tomorrow, but everything's happening.
Yeah, it is. It's quite busy outside, yeah, I've got to say. Yeah.
Very good. Also, we've got young Michael Formato who's going to be doing our social media for us today, which is going to be a lot of fun. All right, before we get into everything, you can get in touch with us on the WhatsApp line. We're going to put that up on the screen for you so you can check that out. There we go. That's the number. You want to say, how's it? Also, Gary, I don't know, many years ago there was a TV show called The Mentalist. Did you ever watch it?
I didn't actually watch The Mentalist.
It was a fabulous thing. And it's all about sitting and reading people's minds.
Yeah.
So don't tell me now. Fritz can do this as well. And also, please, while you're watching here, what's your favorite color? Okay, don't tell me. Don't tell me. But during the show, I'm going to give you the correct answer.
Okay.
All right, just through this incredible brilliance of my brain, I'm going to be able to tell you what your favorite color is. Before we get on to Formula One, let's go to last weekend, the 100th running, Gary, of Le Mans. Now, I don't think there's any person in the world who has any, just a drop of blood of motorsport in them, doesn't love Le Mans, knows or heard of Le Mans. The 100th running last weekend, and history was made. I mean, it was incredible. I don't think anybody expected it, but Ferrari won at Le Mans for the first time in 58 years.
Exactly. No, what a weekend for them. I mean, yeah, they qualify, the cars on pole, first time back. I mean, it's no mean feat. I mean, even Audi, after all the success they had, they didn't do anything near that on their first attempt. Of course. And just got better from there. But I mean, for Ferrari to, as a works team, you got to say, to go and win the race was just something unbelievable. It really was a script, a story script that was played out at Le Mans last weekend. So it was really good to see them. I was really happy to see them win the race.
I mean, honestly, I sat there and I saw them at the Nürburgring in the 296, the GTs, and I sat there and I said, okay, now this is the hypercar coming out there, first time in 58 years that they won the Premier class category.
Yeah, the race overall.
The race overall. And Giovinazzi, James Collado, Pierluigi Guidi. It was just something fantastic. And if you are a Ferrari fan, just to let you know, the last time they won the Formula One Championship was 2007, and that was back with Kimi Räikkönen. And I worked it out. We only have 42 years to wait. I don't think it's going to be that long. But anyway, I think fantastic, most probably for the morale of the whole of the Ferrari organization.
Yeah, well, the thing is they got everything right. All the strategy calls,
Exactly.
Everything was right. The cars lasted. It was all good for them there. So the sports car team did exactly what the F1 team should be doing on occasion.
And they made the tyres work.
Yeah.
So maybe, well, we've got Pirelli, but maybe Ferrari need Michelins. I don't know.
Who knows?
Anyway.
Yeah.
That can be discussed. Anyway, congratulations. I think a fantastic result for the AF Corsa Ferrari World Sports Car team. Let's go back to Barcelona. Not the most exciting race that we've seen, but we do expect Max to sort of run out and then everything else plays behind him. But Max Verstappen, just Gary, the guy's maturity. Yes, he's been in Formula One a long time. He's been there since he's quite a youngster. But his maturity, he's not overdriving the car. He completely understands that car. Sometimes doesn't listen to the instructions from his team. but the guy is really playing a couple of leagues ahead of everyone else.
I think that's the scary thing for everybody else, is that you sort of get the impression that he's not trying his absolute best. And he needs to put in a fast lap or whatever it is, he's able to do it quite easily. And as I said, that I think for everybody competing with Max and Red Bull is a big concern, because you're not going to beat this guy easy or Red Bull easily at the moment. I mean, we knew it, and Barcelona was a track where I think the aerodynamics and the setup of the car was going to show us exactly what we had, and it played out exactly, as it always has been in Barcelona. You've got to say, but yeah, I mean, it's just he's in a really, it's actually. You just wonder how anybody's going to beat this guy, and who is this person going to be? Because there's nobody kind of on the horizon or that's around where you think, now this can be a Max challenger. There's a lot of comparisons being drawn. Is he as good as Michael Schumacher? Is he as good as this one? I really do believe he's one, if not the greatest of all time.
Yeah, the guy is just, what he's doing is quite amazing, and you've got to, I think there must probably be a lot of people saying, oh yeah, but it's also his car, and you go, well, hold on a second,
where's Checo?
Yeah, where's Perez? And I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. I said, when a car is easier to drive, that's when you can tell how comparable teammates are. And yet you've got 5 victories to 2 in Red Bull at the story. When Lewis was dominating, he was much more consistent than Valtteri Bottas. When Schumacher was winning, he was more consistent and won more than Barrichello and Massa. That's the comparison when a car's easy to drive. When a car's difficult to drive, then it's, it's most probably even highlighted even more.
Exactly.
But when the car's easier to drive, that's when you can see that comparison.
So in other words, what you're saying is Perez should be, I don't know if we're going a little bit too soon, but Perez should actually be
right up there
with him. The car's the best car in Formula One.
Correct.
Perez shouldn't be being beaten by anybody else. And he is. So,
yeah, that's the question. We're going to talk a bit more about Sergio a little bit later. You mentioned a little bit about Barcelona, the characteristic of the track for many, many years being the testing bench for all of the new updates and upgrades. All of the testing was done over there. This was the circuit we were going to see whether or not these new updates on the cars were going to work. Mercedes just pumped it out. Unbelievable, since how they started the season, and all of a sudden came to Barcelona, Gary, and whatever updates they have done, they've done them well, and only as Mercedes can do. Definitely, second in line now.
Well, I tell you what, in last year was the big thing for me with Mercedes. I mean, they really started off and it was tough. The car was no good, and they, within the budget cap, within the way the regulations work, were able to make their way towards the front of the field and fix a lot of that car.
And won.
And won races, exactly. And nobody else has really been able to do that. And you're taking the fight to Red Bull, which, as we just discussed, I mean, is a big challenge right now. So you've got to really take your head off to that team in the way that they've managed to bring themselves back focused. Because it's no matter how you look at it, and if you like them or don't like them or whatever it is, they've had a tough time. I mean, they had an exceptional couple of years where they were just unbeatable as well. But to have now sort of dug down and got to the problems at the way that and at the speed that they have, I think you've really got to take your head off to Mercedes.
Yeah, with you look at someone like James Allison, who sort of stepped back from the team, saw the issues that they had, and basically just stepped right back in and said, no, we've got to sort it out. In the picture, you look at a team like Ferrari. Ferrari have basically come out and said the next 40 days are crucial as to whether or not they continue in this path, or maybe they look for something different in 2024. The biggest issue, Gary, and it's not the first time we've seen it with Ferrari. We saw it even in the Schumacher era, and it seems to be a persistent problem. They always battle with the tyres. So is it a suspension issue that they have? Whatever it is, there's like the specific window where Ferrari's incredibly fast on the tyre or on a specific tyre, and then all of a sudden they just fall off a cliff. And it seems to be an inherent problem with a lot of the Ferrari design over the years. It changes so much every year, so it's, who knows what that's all about. But at the end of the day, you can look at what we've got now, and as you quite rightly said, they're not able to put the whole package together. So last year was really a year where they should have capitalized, and they just couldn't carry it on. Where you've got a team like Mercedes-Benz coming from nowhere, really, up to the front. Ferrari started up there and just went backwards.
It was very unfortunate for the team and for Ferrari. And this year they didn't start off as well as last year at all. And you just don't see them being able to. Maybe we're wrong and they come back, but you just don't see them being able to do what Mercedes does.
I just sit there, and Barcelona to me is always a benchmark. And if you can't get it really right there, then you're going to have issues wherever you go. So, yeah, Ferrari got some big decisions to make, especially for their future. And then also, you know, a lot of the drivers will also be starting and sitting and going, hold on, you know, is my future really here? Which brings me on to the next team, and also sort of the Monaco-French connection of Charles Leclerc, because I think he's already his 5th season. Of course, he doesn't want to leave Ferrari, but if Ferrari can't give him the vehicle, you've got to move. Alpine, on the other hand, you know, I said at the beginning of the season, I said, watch out for these guys. Renault are putting things together. They've got 2 very competent drivers in Ocon and Gasly. And Ocon, at the moment, was probably just a little bit better than Gasly in terms of their points. But, Gary, that car's getting better and better and better. And they're in for the long haul, as we know. They are Renault. They've had huge success in Formula One. This is a team that, you know, don't forget, Schumacher went there back in his day and won championships. Alonso won with Renault. There's no reason why Alpine, Renault, doesn't get back to the top again.
Look, I think there's a lot of will to get the car up to the top. It's all about people, Sasha. You know, it's all about putting the right team together. You know, you talk about the Benetton days with Michael Schumacher. We had
Flavio, Rory,
Flavio, Ross Brawn. You know, those are the key people, and those are the people he took with him to Ferrari at the end of the day. Okay, apart from Flavio, obviously, and that's what made that Ferrari era when Michael Schumacher was there so strong. It was about the people. So whoever's going to go there as a driver, I think you really, and nobody's really done it since Schumacher, actually. So, okay,
or Fernando.
Yeah, we're going to put this whole thing together.
Correct.
Now. Bring the right people, bring the whole thing and make it work. But yes, certainly from a funding point of view and from a manufacturer point of view, it's Renault at the end of the day. You know, you've got a lot of what you need there to make this thing work. But you're right, Leclerc has got to be asking himself, you know, he's championship material, I believe, in the right kit. Man, Ferrari is not delivering,
not giving him the tools.
No.
Yeah, I think that's a problem. Speaking of Michael Schumacher, I read a very interesting piece by James Viles. James Viles, of course, was Mercedes for many, many years, now the team principal at Williams. He's come out with a couple of interesting facts. Number one, he says some of the technology and tech stuff at Williams is like 20 years old. Okay, that's big problem, question mark there. But he came out about Michael Schumacher, of how when Michael, you know, retired from Formula One and then Mercedes managed to sort of court him back, and how instrumental Schumacher was in building the team that it is today. It was quite fascinating, you know, of the kind of charisma Michael Schumacher had just in being able to draw people together and actually work together. Quite something. All right, that's a look back at Barcelona. I don't think there's much more to say about Barcelona. This weekend, of course, we start looking towards the Canadian Grand Prix. But coming up next, it's about beer and then lots of news. More news. Stay there. And welcome back. Of course, we are here live from our Suzuki pop-up store at the Menlyn Shopping Centre. Go through a couple of messages. Gary, Wenzel, hello. Euclid, how's it? Colin, Roland, all saying greatest race of the year, Le Mans. Euclid, as a Ferrari fan, found the Le Mans victory, loved the Le Mans victory. Who was the team principal for Ferrari at Le Mans? Get into Formula One. Get the AF. Angelo says, get the AF Corsa team to run the Formula One Ferrari team. Yeah, listen, I suppose we all wonderful critics, including myself. You know what I mean? I've also got lots to say about many, many things. Okay, let's get back to some news. Go back to the Monaco Grand Prix. And Jeremy Clarkson, as I'm sure everybody knows, went out and tweeted, and he said, if Alpine get a podium, then I will buy you a pint. And Jeremy Clarkson, true to his word, arrived at the Alpine factory. There he is with his Hawkstone lager. That in the background is a guy called Caleb, and there's Esteban Ocon, and delivered 1,000 litres of Hawkstone lager.
He's round the corner there, isn't he? His
Yes,
farm's round the corner.
farm round the corner. Now, the amazing thing as well, he delivered that in front of that's his Lamborghini tractor. And then he brought all the kegs along as well. If you haven't watched Clarkson's Farm on Amazon Prime, do yourself a favor. It is brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. There we go. All right, also going back to Grand Prix that took place and didn't take place. The Imola Grand Prix, we know, was completely rained out because of floods. And speaking of floods, here in South Africa, got massive flooding down in the Western Cape. So if you are watching from there, we hope that you are safe, and hopefully that rain sort of stops sooner than later. But at Imola, the trophies were made. They got signed by all of the drivers, and they went on to auction, Gary, which was great, and they raised another 250,000 pounds, which in South African money is about 750 million rand, which is great. You know, I think something very, very special as well. So there we go. A team that say they are on the up, and that is the Haas team, Gary. Now, this is a team that there could be, you know, I think last show we spoke that there could be the tie-up with Alfa Romeo, which makes a lot of sense. Hulkenberg doing a fantastic job.
Very, very much so.
And, you know, they 1 or 2 tenths of just being outside of the points in the last couple of races. So, you know, they're trying very, very hard. But the one thing that they've really, really improved on is their pit stops, which is quite amazing. You know, they were in the sort of 4.5 seconds, 5 seconds. And that is so critical when you're in that midfield runners. And now they're getting it down to the 2, you know, the sort of as quick as sort of Red Bull. It makes a huge difference.
Massive. I mean, look, think how you fight, or how much money you spend to find a second. Okay, it's a second over the Grand Prix, but it's still a second. You know, and then, as you said, that's the difference between becoming fifth or scoring points or not scoring points, which for them is a huge thing. But it's kind of like almost unacceptable to have a 4-second pit stop these days as well. So they needed to get their act together. But yeah, Haas is, I think, doing a good job. Hulkenberg, I've really enjoyed seeing him in the car this year. It's really been good. And Magnussen has really got his hands full with Hulkenberg. And, you know, for me, and I look at it and I say, I'm digressing here now, but I said Ricciardo in the Renault had Hulkenberg under control, no problem. And went to McLaren, Norris absolutely annihilated him. And you've got Hulkenberg back in Formula 1 and making a name for himself again. So it's just amazing how it all works out.
And I just still astonishes me that Nico Hulkenberg has never had a podium in Formula 1. I mean, he's won Le Mans. He won the A1. You remember when A1 was around? He's a fantastic racing driver.
He did all these things.
All of those things. He's had a pole position in Formula 1, and yet he's never, ever been on the podium. It's bizarre. Kevin Magnussen, speaking of which, this weekend, 150th Grand Prix, and here was a guy who started at McLaren, then got tossed out, came back, thrown out again. On his day, he's got that pole last year, which was, bizarre but brilliant. And it's just a team, you just sit there and say, man, it's stuck that little tenth. Barcelona was hoping a little bit more, whereas all of a sudden Alfa Romeo took that step up. And Haas, they sort of left Haas behind them. So I think it's a great fight there. Williams, Haas, maybe a little Alfa Tauri and Alfa Romeo. And it's nothing. And maybe those pit stops are going to help.
But this is, apart from Max, if you look at the field and the closeness of the field in Formula 1, it is a very close championship. It really is close. Max is making it look like a runaway. But the rest of it is tight and actually very, very good. And we haven't seen that in Formula 1. I mean, if you've got a Williams now that's only, I think 2 seconds, whatever it was. But it's not this massive gap that you saw before.
Like
the field, the regulations, how everything has been done in Formula 1 is as well, saying he's really racing against himself. So, you know, he's got to just, he's got the car, as we said, is good enough to be second in every race, in every Grand Prix. That's what I think is the realistic best for Perez right now. And that's the job he's got to do. Forget about what Max is doing. You're wasting your time even trying to have a go. You know?
Now, the other thing is, you know, let's say he had to take that advice from you, that sensible advice, saying, listen, if you have the chance to beat Max, yes. But if you're sitting behind Max, don't go and toss it in the cat. Just to bring the car home second.
Exactly.
Surely that's going to give him or preserve his seat at Red Bull. Whereas if he tries to overdrive or try and chase it onto him, then where does Perez go, number one? And then this is the big, big question. If Red Bull had to decide okay, we want a different partner for Max Verstappen, where would you go?
Where would you go, and who'd want to? That's now the
Yeah, no, that's
and
it
who'd
as
want
well.
to?
Who'd want to be his partner?
That's the other thing. So it's not so easy because you're playing right at the top end there. You know, Max, Fernando, you've got to say Lewis, Charles Leclerc, but none of them want teammates with Max Verstappen. That's for sure. So you're going to have to go for a younger guy. Maybe they were hoping Ricciardo, you know, they refound or rekindled something in Ricciardo. Maybe that's an option. I don't know. But whatever it is, it's going to be very difficult to find the person and to get somebody that's going to be quick enough to basically do what the team needs them to do, and that's support Max Verstappen. And I think, you know, unfortunately for Perez, and you've got to say it now, going off like he has, it's actually a below par
Performance.
It is.
No, I agree. Julie says, come on, Sasha, let's do a Formula One trip. Julie, let's get in touch. I think it's a fantastic idea. I'd like to do that. Okay. There are quite a few interesting other stories that are going around the Formula One. A lot of people talking about 2026 and the engine regulations and these things. But, you know, that's for another kind of discussion. I don't think we should have worry about that. The last 10 days, a lot of news about South African Grand Prix, again coming up. Oh, it's going to happen. No, it's not going to happen. The South African government is in bed with the Russians, and that's why it's all falling apart. At this stage, it doesn't look like it's coming for 2024.
No.
But it might in 2025. Who knows? However, the good news, the other side of the coin, the good news, it looks like Spa, Francorchamps in Belgium, will be coming back on the calendar. Apparently the promoters have had a very, very positive meeting. It's just one of those iconic racing circuits that you want to see cars race on. The issue for Formula One with Spa is that it is so big that they can only have certain groups of people in certain areas, and I think this is where the promoter has the biggest problem, is because there could be 300,000 people at Spa, but you don't know how to govern it.
Yeah.
That's the issue with Spa.
Yeah.
But as a racing circuit, Gary, one of the finest ever created.
And unbelievable. And again, you know, just touching on it, you know, you've got to keep the essence of Formula One going, and Spa is very much part of that.
Oh.
But you know, I actually looked at a ticket the other day for Spa just to check. I mean, I think the cheapest ticket you can get for Spa, the Grand Prix this year, is about 350 euros. And that's like standing somewhere on a grass bank or whatever it may be. So
It's very
Formula has
expensive.
become expensive now.
It's very expensive. So if you are, Julie, if you are planning, you know, maybe from my side, I maybe have to start buying the lotto tickets. But you know, let's look at something. It looks very cool. All right, there we go. That's some of the news that's been happening from around the world. Of course, in Canada, they're all waking up. Today is sort of like setup day. It's unlike any other kind of Thursdays, because now we just start really the Grand Prix weekend. But I'm sure a lot of news will come out over the next 3 days. Perhaps a new Lewis Hamilton contract, or Lewis Hamilton go to Ferrari, or maybe to Alpine, or maybe to IndyCar. Who knows in the world of Formula One. Coming up, we'll start looking towards the Canadian Grand Prix. Welcome back. This weekend, the Canadian Grand Prix, the St. Lawrence Seaway, the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, some place that I've been desperate to go to my whole life. I haven't managed to get there as yet, but it's definitely on my bucket list, Gary. But I think I'm also mostly attached because of Gilles Villeneuve.
Yeah.
He was the first Canadian, and you know, when they came to Montreal, he won the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
His son, of course, became a world champion, but a very special racetrack, and usually full of tremendous excitement.
Yeah, tremendous excitement, and also just a Grand Prix. You know, before F1 took off in America like it has now, you know, the Canadian Formula
Yes.
One fans were really, there's a big, good market for it there. A lot of support for Formula, a lot of understanding about Formula One, what Formula One was about. So it's always been a very, you know, for being in North America, a very special Grand Prix. As you said, definitely one of those places you'd love to go. Just too bloody far.
No, for us, it's way too far.
You know, so you'd have to walk these days. The price and everything, but you know.
It's an amazing place. It's got the Wall of Champions, of course, coming out of the chicane into the start finish. We've had so much action there over the years. I mean, Button and Vettel, most probably one of the most iconic races that we ever saw. I think
5.5 hours or something.
5.5 hours. I think we finished in the studio after midnight in that Grand Prix, but very special. There was one interesting statistic. In 2005, the Canadian Grand Prix was the most watched Formula One Grand Prix in the world. It was only third behind that year the Super Bowl and the European Cup final. So I mean, it's a very, very popular Grand Prix as well. Now, before we look at all of these statistics for the Grand Prix, where was I? I wanted to look at. Where was our next picture? I'm sure it had something to do with Mercedes. Yes, let's look at Mercedes first of all. Mercedes this weekend is sitting and saying, don't get too overhyped about what happened in Canada. I mean, in Barcelona, the pecking order it might be slightly different in Canada this weekend. Gary, I don't buy that at all. I think they know exactly what they've got. I think they understand the car a tremendous amount and a lot better than what before Barcelona. And I really think that these guys might actually even challenge for pole.
Listen, as you said, the trajectory's been good, and if they can keep it going, there's a chance, you know. That's what we want to actually see. You know, I mean, listen, the whole thing was this whole Max Lewis battle. I mean,
exactly hyped out.
It just worked. It just worked, and it just brings so much to the table.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they can get it right, it's just fantastic for all of us.
It would be. I mean, because there's just something about the two of them racing wheel to wheel.
There's electricity there, you know.
Exactly. Another team that most probably needs a little bit of motivation, you know, something to keep their spirits high is McLaren. Rob Marshall coming to join the team. Lando Norris coming out and saying they're very excited about the future. This year, I mean, they did well, but in race pace they just fell off in Barcelona. But two incredibly talented drivers in Lando and Oscar Piastri. Although Oscar was probably finding it a little bit more difficult than he thought he would coming up against Lando Norris.
Well, I think Norris is almost a hidden talent. I don't think anybody really understands how fast this guy actually is. I mean, when he arrived in Formula One, he was with Carlos Sainz, and it was his first year in Formula One. He was there, challenging, beating Sainz, and they were running sort of evenly, if you want to call it that. And then he just obviously developed and has gone further. And we saw the result with Ricciardo. Piastri was supposed to be the next greatest thing. I mean, he's won GP3, won GP2,
he's won everything.
Won everything he's sat in.
Yeah.
And Lando is just, he hasn't been able to really, he's got closer maybe than Ricciardo did, but Lando's also, I think, a bit special as well.
I agree, and I think Lando sort of came in as, he's just a fun guy. He's actually a very serious racing driver. I mentioned it last week. In Monaco, the only person when the track was damp and wet, the only person who was as quick as Max was Lando Norris. Okay, now, earlier on, I said you should tell me what your favorite color is, Gary.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to bring up a picture here. Here we go. We're going to find out what your favorite color is. I'm just getting my brain together. Your favorite color is red.
How did you know?
How did I know? There we go. Thank you very much. That's proven live on TV. How powerful this brain is. There we go. Eva Green wearing red. That'll do it for me. All right. Okay. Back onto the serious business now. Focus, Sasha. Focus. This weekend, woohoo! Pirelli. Tyres have always been a factor at Canada, and braking, Gary. Braking, big factor around this track.
Well, obviously long straights, long braking zones, or in Formula One, what is long these days, and they stop so quickly.
Relative.
But yeah, and just the way that the whole place works and the air and so forth. So braking is going to be, get your cooling right, get it all working. That's going to be key. Following people down those long straights as well doesn't allow as much cooling into the brakes. All those sort of things. We've seen a lot of that. produced a lot of action in the past.
It's just, it really is something special. We've got the C3, the C4, the C5, which are the softest compounds of the Pirelli range. Yeah, tyres and brakes, big factor in this one. However, there we go, on your screen, the hard, the medium, and the softest in all of them. Just a magnificent racetrack, Gary. I mean, you know, you look at that and you go, how can that actually give us so much excitement? And you see those pictures, just something very special. We could have, for the 4th race in a row, barring one, and I mean, there's going into turn 2 and 3, coming out of the pits on the left-hand side there. Also, a great overtaking opportunity into that chicane coming down the straight. So, you know, two overtaking opportunities in one.
Absolutely, and of course you've got the final sort of hairpin, you know, around the back of the circuit as well, you know. So and the chicanes, as you said, so lots of overtaking opportunities. And with these cars now, you know, they can follow closer. They've got the ground effect, which makes it a little easier. The DRS, I mean, works like a dream now. So you could expect, I mean, with the, as we said, with the closeness of the field, if Max is going to be in it, you could see a lot of overtaking and actually quite a good race here because of the track layout.
I think so, and we might have rain.
Again.
Yeah. So we're going to go back one. The weather prediction for Sunday is a 60% chance of rain, but that's at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. As we go a little bit further into the day, it drops significantly. We're more than likely found, like in Barcelona, it come pouring down right at the end or something, something like that. But where the rain can make a difference. Gary, also low grip initially on the track because it's not a traditional racetrack, but eventually it does rubber in if they get rain on Saturday after qualifying or whatever. They start from scratch again. But it's amazing how quickly they adapt. These drivers just zone in, and it's incredible, just mental capacity.
And and the art is, I mean, we speak about getting these tyres into the working window. The window is not huge. And I mean, that's the amazing thing. These guys know just where to go with these cars, how to drive them to get the tyres into that window, and that's what's going to make you separate you. If you can work that out, again, of course, the margins are tiny, but that is really the art, is managing and getting these tyres to actually work.
Yeah, Ferrari need to work that one out more than everybody else. Before we go on, Gary, the size of these cars nowadays. Huge. And, you know, I was sitting, you know, you watch Monaco and you think, oh, yeah, year by year, and you don't realize that these cars are significantly bigger than cars from 10 years ago and even 3 or 4 years ago. And yet the skill level just seems to continually improve. It's quite astonishing.
It is, and more drivers are sort of developing that ultimate level now. You know, only a couple of years ago we had a situation where you had paid drivers and people coming to Formula 1. I think those days now almost over now.
Yeah.
You know, I think to be in Formula 1, you've got to really be at a level, no matter what car you're driving in Formula 1. You've got 20 seats in the world, and as a team now, you know, you've got to have somebody special in your car. So the premium now for the top guys is really, you know, starting to play out.
Okay, so this weekend, before we show you the circuit, Canadian Grand Prix, Lance Stroll, Canadian, Lawrence Stroll, also Canadian. Aston Martin must have been a little bit concerned. Well, there's two things I want to bring up here. In Barcelona, they weren't quite on the pace, although they say they have significant upgrade that they're bringing here. And you go, well, why didn't you bring it in Barcelona? So it's something that I don't understand. The other thing that I don't quite understand, Alonso, up until then, had 5 podiums. He's far behind Max, but not that far behind. Anything can happen in this world of Formula 1. He was right behind Lance Stroll. Probably was faster than Lance Stroll, and yet they didn't ask them to swap over just from purely a points position. Is this political?
Look, we all know how it all works there, and the owner's son is the driver of one of the cars. I'm sure it's going to be a little more difficult for them to. But I'm sure if it was at a more crucial stage of the year, they probably would have made that call. But you know, I think at the end of the day, also it was nice. I think to give Lance
a little bit of confidence.
Yeah, I think it was important to get him going. You know?
And I mean, this weekend, you're there in front of your home fans, and even though you're in a car that's making so much noise, Gary, you feel it. You know, you're going to feel that the people are behind you.
For sure, there's absolutely no doubt. And I think any driver who races in the home Grand Prix or in any home big sporting event in their home ground, it's a massive thing. There is an extra bit of something there. Who knows what it is, but there's definitely something there.
I mean, I remember Mansell saying that racing, when he raced in the UK, day, it sort of gave him like
Yeah.
3/10 to half a second of pace. It was just that adrenaline and that support.
Yeah.
So very, very special. Let's have a look at the circuit, the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. And we've got our DRS zones. It is a spectacular circuit. Lots can happen. You've got your chicanes at 13 and 4. No, that's actually, I want to go further down. Going into 8 and 9, Gary, you can really get it wrong there, as well as 6 and 7. Definitely corners, slide a little bit wide, you're in those walls.
Absolutely, the walls. I was going to say the walls are close by here.
Yeah.
You know, it's again one of these circuits, not a street circuit, but it's a makeshift sort of circuit, and not a lot of room for error. So if it rains and safety cars, and you spoke about the Water Champions. Everybody seems to find that at some stage. So this is. It's an exciting Grand Prix. It's definitely worth staying up late on Sunday night to watch this one.
No, I can't wait. And also you've got to watch out for the wildlife.
Yeah.
They have the ground dogs,
which
I think, they call it ground dogs. I think in South Africa we would call those dassies.
We would.
I think they are dassies. Similar, whatever.
But don't take my word for that.
Yeah, no, exactly. I must probably get shouted down for it somewhere. But it is, there's a lot of wildlife around there, and they have to be cautious, especially the animals. And we've also had some crazy incidents over there. I don't think anybody could ever forget. 15 years ago, 15 years ago he won.
Yeah.
But Robert Kubica's horrendous accident, and yet walked out there with a broken ankle.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Incredible.
Listen, a bit of luck on your side on any given day is not a bad thing.
Yeah, very, very cool. Lots of comments coming through here, so we'll go through them during the course of the evening. Also, when can we watch the Grand Prix? Here come all of the times for you. On Saturday fortunately, my wife booked me a paddle game during practice and not qualifying. Otherwise, there could be divorce proceedings. But I'm sure we'll manage to get through it. But that is our Grand Prix for the weekend. 8 o'clock on Sunday night, Gary.
Yeah.
Going to be fantastic, and 7:30 from tomorrow night. That's when all of the action comes. I said at the beginning of the show, the law of averages says that somebody should beat Red Bull. However, Red Bull are on this going, listen, let's try and win 24 out of 24. Could happen.
It could happen. I mean, listen.
I don't think it's going to happen.
It could, but there's just too many Grand Prix. But you never know. But let's see. So I just want to see a good race.
Yeah.
That's really what we want to see.
We want to see it. Gary, always good to see you.
Likewise.
Michael been handling our social media. Thank you, Michael. Fritz, of course, there we go. Going to be working the whole of the long weekend as well. And Henk for making sure that everything goes out live. From all of us, enjoy your day off tomorrow. If you are here in South Africa, it is June the 16th tomorrow. And enjoy the Canadian Grand Prix. We will chat very soon. Let's go racing.